Rain poured down the deserted city streets, soaking the boy's thin jacket and worn shoes. He crouched near a cafe entrance, fingers trembling as he shuffled a few crumpled coins in a tin cup. Passers-by glanced at him with disgust, laughter, and indifference. "Can I play for food?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm. Nobody noticed the quiet intensity in his eyes, the spark of something extraordinary hidden beneath the grime and hunger. Then, a few notes from an old abandoned piano on the corner cut through the rain like a blade, shattering the mockery and disbelief around him. They had no idea the boy they laughed at could unlock music that could move hearts, command crowds, and change lives forever. The boy had no name in the eyes of the world, just a shadow moving between alleyways, dodging judgmental gazes and the sharp sting of cold rain. By day, he scavenged for scraps, his stomach grumbling louder than the city traffic. By night, he found refuge under dim streetlights, the hum of the city a lullaby to his lonely existence. People hurried past, wrapped in warmth and indifference, their eyes skimming over him like he was part of the urban scenery. No one paused to see the intelligence in his eyes, the unspoken dreams pressed deep into his heart. Yet, despite the relentless hardship, there was a rhythm to his life, a quiet persistence that refused to break. He had once sat in a grand concert hall, fingers brushing ivory keys in a room that smelled of polished wood and hope. That memory was a flickering light in the darkness, a reminder that he was more than his ragged coat or the dirt on his knees. Music had always been his escape, the one thing that made him feel alive when the world treated him like invisible dust. He would spend hours watching abandoned pianos tucked away in forgotten corners of the city, the notes in his mind dancing before he ever touched a key. The hunger, the cold, the laughter of strangers, all of it sharpened his focus, honed a skill that no one in the city imagined could come from someone so small, so unseen. And yet, beneath the grime and hunger, beneath the mockery of a society that refused to notice him, a storm of potential was growing, ready to erupt in a way the world would never forget. Days turned into weeks, and the city's indifference never wavered. He sat on the same wet sidewalk, watching the world move past with harsh laughter and subtle sneers. Street performers were ignored or shooed away, and he, a small, ragged boy, seemed destined to be nothing more than another shadow. But inside him, a fire burned. Every mocking glance, every cold shove from the city's hurried crowds, became fuel for his resolve. He had talent, and he knew it. The world's blindness only made him sharper, more determined to prove his worth. One gray afternoon, an abandoned piano in the corner of a forgotten square caught his attention. Its keys were chipped, its surface scratched from years of neglect, yet it called to him like an old friend. Hesitant at first, he pressed a single key. A note rang out, pure and trembling, slicing through the ambient noise of car horns and footsteps. Encouraged, he began to play, each note weaving into the next, a tapestry of sound so intricate that the city's chaos seemed to pause around him. People slowed, drawn in by the music, but many shook their heads, scoffing at the boy sitting in rags playing a piano most wouldn't touch. The laughter was relentless. Coins tossed into his tin cup were accompanied by jeers, assumptions, and invisible barriers. "A street kid?" they muttered. "Who does he think he is?" No one could fathom the depth of his skill, the hours of silent practice, the memories of grand halls, or the talent that pulsed through his veins. Every note he played became an act of defiance, a quiet rebellion against a world quick to judge and slow to recognize potential. Then, one afternoon, something shifted. A passerby stopped. Not out of pity, but curiosity. Another followed. Soon a small crowd gathered, murmurs mixing with the music. Eyes widened as they realized the dexterity in his fingers, the emotion in every keystroke. The boy's hands danced across the keys with the grace of someone far beyond his years. The laughter faded, replaced by astonishment and a reluctant admiration. Yet even as whispers of awe spread, there were still skeptics. the voices of doubt trying to drown out the music with prejudice, convinced that a boy in rags could not possibly possess such brilliance. And in that tension, the boy found his strength. The world's doubt sharpened his focus. The jeers became rhythm, the mockery transformed into melody. He played with a power that demanded recognition, every note a statement, every chord a challenge to the dismissive world around him. The city could no longer ignore him, though some still tried, and with every key struck, he inched closer to a revelation that would not only astonish but shatter expectations and prejudices alike. The day the crowd fully gathered, the air was thick with skepticism and curiosity. People jostled for a better view, whispering among themselves, expecting nothing more than a sad street performance. But the boy, soaked and trembling, sat at the battered piano with a calm he had never felt before. As his fingers touched the keys, silence fell over the square, an almost sacred pause that seemed to hold its breath. The first note rang out, clear and resonant, piercing through the cold, cynical air like sunlight through storm clouds. He played with a mastery that defied belief. Each chord carried emotion so raw it made hearts ache. Each melody told stories of hunger, loneliness, and resilience. The crowd's faces transformed. Mockery faded, skepticism dissolved, replaced by awe, shock, and, for some, a guilty recognition of their own blind prejudice. People whispered, eyes wide, struggling to comprehend that the boy they had dismissed, laughed at, and ignored could evoke such power from a worn instrument. Then came the crescendo. His hands moved faster, more confidently, a symphony rising from the hands of a child who had known the harshest corners of the city. Tears streamed down the cheeks of strangers who had never considered what it felt like to be invisible, dismissed, underestimated. The music seemed to transcend the square, reaching into the very hearts of those who had doubted him, challenging every assumption they had made. And just as the final note lingered in the cold air, an almost tangible hush enveloped the crowd. They stared at him, a boy in rags, breathing heavily, soaked from rain, yet radiant in his triumph. For the first time the world could see him, not as a street urchin, not as a figure to pity or mock, but as a prodigy, as a human being capable of moving souls with his talent. In that moment, the injustice of the past, the laughter, the scorn, the blind prejudice, was met with undeniable truth. He had not only survived their dismissal but had risen above it in the most beautiful, unforgettable way imaginable. The rain had stopped, but the echoes of the music lingered in the square, weaving through the hearts of every witness. The boy sat quietly at the piano, fingers resting, chest heaving, not from exhaustion alone, but from a deep, fulfilling sense of triumph. The world had seen him at his lowest, and had doubted him at every step, yet he had turned their ridicule into admiration, their disbelief into awe. For the first time, he wasn't invisible. He was recognized, celebrated, and deeply human in the eyes of those who had once dismissed him. Passers-by who had laughed and walked away now knelt, applauded, and whispered apologies they didn't know how to voice. Invitations came from teachers, concert halls, and patrons, all eager to nurture the talent that had seemed impossibly hidden behind rags and hunger. But more importantly, he had changed something far bigger than his own circumstances. He had shaken the city's assumptions, forcing everyone who had doubted him to confront their own biases, prejudices, and the quiet cruelty of indifference. As he walked away from the square that day, the piano's echoes fading behind him, he carried more than hope. He carried proof that talent, determination, and humanity could never truly be buried. One boy, overlooked and underestimated, had reminded a world obsessed with appearances that greatness can come from the most unexpected places. And in that realization there was a powerful universal truth. Never judge someone by what you see, for you cannot know the battles they fight, the skills they hide, or the impact they might have on the world. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that inspire, challenge, and uplift. Leave a comment below telling us how you've witnessed someone's hidden talent shine against all odds.